he doesn't make money else and he needs money to live? Are you stupid? Yo, YouTube, Mr. T here, and today we're going to react to a video made by Misha Petrov. She is a stanch capitalist reacting to quote-unquote cringy anti-capitalists on YouTube. Now, I found her video and watched it because I thought it would be very interesting, but after seeing it I was kinda shocked and wanted to check it with you guys. Of course, you all know that I am a left-leaning / communist, so I want to jump into this video, and I want you to jump into this video with an open mind, but also check it after this video so that you can get the full unedited version of this video. Let's begin. Yo, post-editing Mr. G here, and I forgot to wish you all a happy start of the new year. It should be the 5th of January when this video comes out, so I hope your 2025 started really great. My 2025 started great, to say the least. And so yeah, I just wanted to wish you a very prosperous and happy year. Now let's continue with the video.
Hey guys, it's Misha and welcome back to my
Hi Misha.
channel. So today we're going to be talking about the communists and also the anarchists, which is a cafe that recently went out of business but is now making a comeback, and that's all very exciting. But before we begin, please make sure you are subscribed and have hit the notification bell so you don't miss any of my videos. So here is the original video.
The Anarchist is a worker-owned, anti-capitalist, anti-colonial cafe, shop, and community space. Gabriel opened the space after leaving Vancouver due to its unwelcoming sense of classism. Though he never felt comfortable working in a coffee shop in BC, he knew if he were to have one of his own, it would have to adopt the values that occupy such a huge part of his life. A place devoted to radical leftist politics, revolution, ending capitalism, improving the world's economic system that benefits everyone and not just elites, and most importantly, sparking conversations that will help implement these ideas. Other than delicious coffee, which Gabriel is most definitely an expert in, the shop has a rich selection of progressive political books that he's selling at wholesale prices. Highly recommend paying a visit to Gabriel at 190 Jarvis Street, if not for great coffee, for even greater conversation.
So the anti-capitalist cafe, where he sells coffee and merch. He sells it to paying customers. I don't know, does he not see the hypocrisy here?
So, the capitalist YouTuber reacting to an anti-capitalist cafe doesn't see why this is, because he's forced, because he doesn't make money else and he needs money to live. Are you stupid? So, he wants to educate people coming to his cafe on leftist ideologies, however wrong he may be on these, because we will later see what he actually says leftist ideologies, and he's wrong, he's dead wrong, like most quote-unquote communists on the internet. But does the capitalist defending YouTuber not see why he does this? While yes, there is a big part of irony in this, you need to understand that this guy also needs to live. He needs to make money. He doesn't have a choice. He doesn't have a choice to make money because else he will die. Don't you see the problem in that?
He's benefiting from the free market system, from the capitalist system. It went out of business after 1 year, which is very surprising. Who would have thought?
It is indeed very surprising. Of course it went out of business because this kind of things are not acceptable in capitalist economies. And surely not in America of all countries.
But don't cry yet. They are returning, so let me read this to you. About Us, The Anarchist is an anti-capitalist cafe, shop, and community space founded in March 2022. We exist to support and promote radical, intersectional, leftist political and economic theory and action. I acknowledge that The Anarchist sits on the rightful homeland of many indigenous peoples and nations, stolen and under the occupation of a white supremacist state. He also has a shop. In addition to the usual food and drinks, I carry a selection of radical books, art, stickers, pins, buttons, keychains, jewelry, clothing, tote bags, and hopefully much more in the future. Painfully aware of the danger of commodifying radical politics, I tried to work with small, relatively ethical, it's all relative in capitalism, supplier creators, keeping prices as low as possible, and that's why he's selling $7 lattes, right?
Because he doesn't have a choice, right?
And focusing on getting radical ideas and messages into the hands of anyone who wants them. Oh, after you look at the cold brews and the lattes, he also has drip coffee, which is pay what you can. You know what this reminds me of? When you would go trick-or-treating with a group of kids, right? And they would have the bowl of candy and there's a sign and it says take one. And then what would the kids do every single time? They take like a handful, right? So of course he's gonna
I always took one. I'm an honest kid.
lose money if you have pay what you can, because no one's gonna pay. Oh my goodness, reproductive justice for all genders. This tote bag, I need this tote bag immediately. And then at the bottom, actually, of this photo, it says community watch area, police not welcome. Okay, God forbid anybody.
That is stupid. I'm just gonna say it right now. I'm not only gonna argue with Misha right here, I'm also gonna argue with everybody else that she's going to react on. Because as I said, the internet doesn't know shit about communism. Even the people who identify as communist don't know shit. They don't know. Police shouldn't be thrown out because they're working for your state. What are you doing? You, of all people, need the police because you need to be working with the state. The things you advocate for are equality, are going in and making a new thing, and you need the state for this. You don't need to throw out a state. Communism doesn't mean community watch. What are you saying? That's the thing I think about a lot. He says first of all, his cafe is called the Anarchist, but he is supporting extreme left ideologies. Anarchism isn't extreme left ideology. I don't know what you're saying. It's actually extreme down ideology, like the political compass. You have right, left, up, down, and anarchism is actually a down ideology. It doesn't matter. It can be left and right. And then you say we support leftist ideology, but no police allowed. Then you're an anarchist, but don't use the word leftist policies. Then what are you saying, Mister the Anarchist?
Wants to steal anything from your store, what's going to happen? Not a fan of Law and Order, I see. Okay. There's a frequently asked questions section here. Oh, good. Another business owned by a rich white guy. I am a white, cisgender, queer man. When I used to daydream about opening my own cafe, but you're an anti-capitalist.
And he wants to spread these ideologies via his own cafe. Don't act stupid.
And your dream is to open up your own business? Okay. Also, I see that you're white and cisgender. I'm very sorry about that, by the way, but at least he's queer.
And you guys are all capitalists, and you're advocating for insurance, and you're advocating for democracy, and you're advocating for all these things that actually stem from leftist ideologies. Don't you see the irony here? Bro, shut up. If you don't know what you're talking about, then shut up. That's all I gotta say on this.
Queer. So he does have some redeeming qualities. There are some oppression points there that he can collect, but that won't be enough for the crowd that he's trying to appeal to. I also feel like the world doesn't need more things owned by people at my particular intersection of privileges. However, this opportunity was offered to me, and I see it as an opportunity to use my privileged position to undermine the systems that put me there. The best thing I think I can do is hire people who aren't white, cisgender, heterosexual men, make them equal owners, and follow their lead in making the place less white male-centered than the industry standard.
As she's going to say, that's indeed not the right thing to do and not the best thing to do. You need to hire everybody. You need to create equality. That's where you stand for. This is where I come to my point. Leftists on TikTok especially, most of them don't know what they're talking about. They're just using some buzzwords, just like this YouTuber is. She is also just using buzzwords like anarchism, anti-capitalism, anti-establishment. You're just throwing around words you don't know what they mean because you're using anarchism, communism, socialism as synonyms while they're three completely different ideas. So you also are really in wrong here in the same sense that he is wrong by saying stupid things like this.
Thank you, you white savior, for just expressing your racism that you will not be hiring white people, specifically white men. At this point, just put a sign up on your cafe, no whites allowed. The ultimate goal here is to have this cafe owned by an anarchist who's a white male saying he's not going to hire white people. But how can you be anti-capitalist if you sell things? LOL. Well,
Don't write LOL. What are you doing? This is the proof. He doesn't know what he's talking about. If you just is that the only thing you can write is LOL, then you should stop identifying as a left. I will give you a reason. How can you be anti-capitalist but still sell things? Well, it's simple. I'm an anti-capitalist. I think money is a substance that should be allowed. But I also think that everybody, including me, should be allowed to eat. Unfortunately, I need, for my own survival, provide food before I provide the absence of money. That's why I sell things, so I can survive, so my community can survive, so this ideology can be spread through this cafe and can survive because it is the better one. I also would like to tell you to make you aware that in a communist society, everybody still needs to work and still needs to give slash sell things just for no money. I'm essentially doing the same thing, except for the fact that in a communist society, the inequality maker, basically, money isn't incorporated into the system, which makes every work equal and thus every product equal.
I can't
That's what you need to write down. Don't do stupid shit like writing LOL. You're ruining the things you're standing for by doing stupid shit like this.
argue with that. Saying you're an anti-capitalist, selling your overpriced coffee and merchandise, here are some stickers, ACAB, capitalism kills. Right, we have too many cops. At a time when places in America here, like LA and New York, which is just riddled with people who are pushing innocent civilians onto train tracks, and there's assaults and murders, we need less cops. We need to defund the police. That's the solution.
Man is charged with attempted murder after a violent subway assault.
There's a pig on it. Eat the rich, compost the rich, be gay, do crime. There hasn't been a society that has existed long term.
Eat the rich is also something we gotta talk about. And that's actually one of the only things I disagree, because I never can completely agree with anything. The only thing I disagree with in communism, you don't need to eat the rich. You don't need to attack the rich. You don't need to do all these things. No, you need to be equal with the rich. You need to incorporate the rich in your new way of thinking, in your new way of life. You don't need to kill them, let alone eat them. For crying out loud. No, you need to take the rich their hands together with the poor, and together you need to walk to the future. That's what communism is about. You take each other's hand, you praise each other, you share with each other, you live with each other, and then you go on. That's it. Not eat the rich, not throw them out. Those are things that are against equality. That's what I'm saying. Are the people who make this shit stupid? What are you doing? Why are you putting so much effort in ruining your own ideology? Why? Why?
In a state of pure anarchy, or communism for that matter, but we'll talk about that later on. But he's an anarchist, right? So yeah, because eventually there will come a time when there's a need for organization in the community.
True. Law, order, organization, they are needed. In a communist society, they are provided. That's why anarchism won't work. It's anarchism that won't work. Communism will work. Anarchism won't.
Community. And again, law and order. Support our tiny business is constantly struggling. I wonder why. The cowards at Target have sided with Christian fascists and removed their Pride products in a transparent display of support for bigotry and genocide. Not closing down thanks to a huge influx of support and a very generous donation of publicity and attention from the Christian conservatives of Texas and Florida. The anarchist will continue to operate after May 30th, promoting his goods and services, in this case his cafe, in a competitive market. This one says, huge thanks to the comrade who helped set this up. Okay, now let's move on to the communists.
Has there ever been a communist country? Well, no. Most communists and anarchists would agree that full communism.
But anarchists aren't communists, so why do you need to put anarchists there? You're just throwing in a buzzword, bro.
Has never actually been achieved. Countless amounts of money has been spent brainwashing these people to not understand what those words mean. And like Pavlov's dog, we've been trained to get angry every time we hear the word. But even though it hasn't yet been achieved, it's the goal of almost every socialist to eventually create true communism.
Okay, right. So the capitalists are the brainwashed ones.
Yes, they are. But they're not the only brainwashed ones. I completely agree that the left, and certainly historical Stalinist, Maoist countries, have used a lot of propaganda. but so have capitalists. And the fact that you don't see this highly convinces me that you're actually the one that is more propagandized than whoever you're gonna react to. Because if you don't see propaganda hanging around everywhere you look, I'm guessing you're stupid. Every poster, for example, during an election is propaganda. You're making propaganda right here. I'm making propaganda. Propaganda is um, just promoting your political beliefs. You're making propaganda right now as we speak. You're making propaganda. I'm making propaganda. What are you doing? If you don't see that, if you think that what you're saying is not propaganda, which it is, right or not, then you're the one who is propagandized so much that, with evil propaganda, because there's a difference. Everything talking about politics is propaganda, but evil propaganda is when the propaganda tries to make you think that you never saw propaganda in your life. Now, you think, I guess, capitalism doesn't provide propaganda, which is the stupidest thing I've ever heard. So I think you're the one who is propagandized here.
Not the communists who think that this utopia can be brought about by them alone, by the way. No one else historically has been able to do this. It has failed every single time, but they can do it.
Because capitalism is so afraid of any other ideology that as soon as somebody takes another ideology, they put sanction after sanction after sanction, and this is until this country, who is actually in a transition phase, is so bankrupt that they don't have another choice.
Learn about the starvation that took place, the mass murder, the lack of freedom of speech, and understand what the actual alternative to capitalism would look like. Capitalism, which by the way is not perfect, but to look at what the alternative has been historically. A typical communist in America always seems to be a middle or upper class white man or woman. It's the people at Starbucks with blue hair sipping their lattes and complaining about how horrible capitalism is.
Competing in the free market is hard. It's an inefficiency of capitalism. We have all the data showing that socialism does work.
It's again these people who have no real struggles except how they were misgendered last week, talking about how evil capitalism is, and the biggest problem in their life is that they don't live in a socialist hellhole, who say that life is so hard, life is so unfair, that people with better work ethic are richer than me. I would much rather everybody be poor. At least it would be fair. At least we would all be standing in line waiting for bread in the cold. So like with my grandparents who fled the Soviet Union, have to see how Gen Z is glorifying this, having a Lenin poster in their room, with the eventual promise of communism, according to Karl Marx, who, by the way, was financially supported, and his entire family was financially supported by Engels. I also recently saw this video.
So, first of all, I find it very amazing that you talk to your grandma about these things. But I also want to make you aware that people who are old tend to exaggerate things. My grandparents, for example, lived through World War II, and they said they needed to hide for weeks and weeks in their basement, in their house where they currently live in. Now, the house they currently live in, first of all, it hasn't been built until 20 years after WW2, and second of all, the village they live in was taken in 1 day, so they couldn't have been hiding for weeks and weeks on end, because the Nazis just took the village and marched through. They didn't even leave any battalions behind to terrorize the village. That's what I want to give you. Just be aware that this sometimes may be wrong information. The alternative to capitalism, socialism, has never actually been written down, and that is why we need to take the historical context as she does. But you can also just take what socialism means, which is a transition stage in which some of the communist values need to be dropped so that the nation can survive, because communism isn't a thing that can survive in this world. It needs to alter the world completely, and it can only achieve that when all people are behind. Now, if you have countries like America who threaten to nuke you as soon as they even see you wear red, for crying out loud, then you get socialism who stays and stays and stays. Socialism is meant to stay for a short period of time to then transition to the utopia that is communism. And socialism can thus be interpreted on a lot of things. Most of the time, this is then interpreted as a dictatorship where people starve because the hyper democratic part of communism is thrown away. But you can also just throw the economic parts of communism away and focus on the hyper democratic parts, such as Vladimir Lenin did, the first person in the Soviet Union who actually made more people, gave more people jobs, gave more people food. And then Stalin came around and he switched. He made the economics more important than the democratic part. And he then was democratic and slowly started decreasing the communist part of his nation and increasing the dictatorship part of his nation. And so did Mao Zedong. After the successor of Mao Zedong, China, which is now still a communist country, is only communist in name, and so is North Korea, and so is Vietnam. And this is what socialism is. It is basically a communist country who drops a few of the communist principles to make sure this country can survive in a hyper-capitalist world.
Supported, and his entire family was financially supported by Engels. I also
which means Engels shared his money and cared for everybody and could open up his portfolio, and he made sure that other people who were poorer than him survived. In the rest of the video, she just proceeds to show TikTok clips of Gen Z people talking about how they're from the left and having mental breakdowns and saying, I don't want to work my entire life. I don't want to work. I don't want to be enslaved to capital. Well, guess what? You're also going to need to work in socialism. And I know this sounds a bit anti-socialist because I say, guess what? But you need to hear me out on this. You need to work. No matter if you're living in a capitalist or a socialist society, is the reason why you work that's changing. In a capitalist society, this reason is because you don't want to work for the benefit of your own and want to create equality and using your work as a means there, because your work is the means of production, and you yourself need to realize that you are a means of production and thus can dictate the means of sharing. That's the difference. In one you get money so you can improve yourself, in the other you get nothing so you together with the other laboring people can improve society. And that's what I said multitude of times now. She doesn't know what she's talking about, but the people she react to also don't. So, dear Misha, I want to explain to you the things I want you to take away from this. 1. Please react to people who actually know what they're talking about. 2. There are more socialist countries than only the Soviet Union. 3. Your grandma and grandpa might slightly overestimate what they're actually experienced, even if it still was bad because the Soviet Union wasn't a great example of socialism. And 4. Anarchism, socialism, and communism are not the same thing. Anarchism is for the abolition of government and a free for all, like in the prehistoric era. Socialism is a transition state between democracy and communism, in which certain values of the communist ideology need to be dropped so that you can survive in a pro-capitalist world. Communism is a completely different way of thinking, in which you find that the world should be run differently, with no states, no money, and equality, where everybody works what they can and take what they need. I want you to take these 3 definitions and think about all the things you said that were wrong. Now, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and learned a bit more about communism. And I hope you, and of course, especially Misha, watch all my next videos on this topic so that you and the rest of the world can better understand the ideology that is slowly drifting away from its original meaning and is started to become less and less what it's supposed to. With that said, that is all I have to say for you today. Mr. T out.